So, video blog. So, all these people complain about things, but did they do it to themselves? Like drugs. I didn't go seek drugs out. I had a roommate that said, and he did, for 6-7 months straight. He wanted to get me into using drugs, and then he constantly basically supplied drugs in that way. And that led to the drinking problem. All created by him. Nothing I was naturally seeking. That's why I talk about how people can rub off on you. And he had a hidden agenda, which he confessed to, at least, and he begged for my forgiveness, but he said that it was his hidden agenda. I don't lie to people, and I don't hide about my, how do you say, what I'm here for and what the interaction's for. I don't have hidden agendas. But I don't try to do anything evil to anyone. If anything evil, they did it to themselves. But my thing is, all these people that have been around, how many people spent that time trying to get you into it? Like, I was watching a TV show, and the guy was grooming the kid to be this part of the gang, and then he kept on saying, you're going to be a king, and so on, and we're going to rule this area. And then he gave him the gun, and he said, I want you to go kill your father. But he was all grooming him. Now, over a short period. But again, it was done to him. And this is why with the Boston Bombers, I have more sympathy for the younger brother who lived, because it was the older brother who got him into all the shit. That brought him into it, that groomed him, that motivated him. So I have more compassion for him because he was steered wrong. Now, I don't know how much peer pressure the older brother put on him. So when I say I have sympathy for him, it's still reserved because I don't know how much he basically encouraged his brother, how much, pressure he put on him to go along. So I don't know how he recruited his younger brother. And so I caution that. I have sympathy because he was steered wrong, but I don't know if he just brought it up to him and he was a willing participant. Where me, I said no for 7 months. That would be, that's a pretty firm, non-willing participant. So, again, it wasn't like, oh, here you go, and it was all around me, and I said no, 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 no. But, again, there's a big difference between my mistakes and other people's mistakes. They were brought upon me. I didn't do them. It was somebody else's hidden agenda that did them to me. their evil hidden agenda. So there's a big difference between my mistakes, where I fought against and it happened, than somebody who was a willing participant. So again, you have to understand this. And you yourself, where your, how do you say, your strengths and weaknesses are. So again, it's big difference. So when I look at those people, and I worked in all the shelter system, the rehab systems and all that, and I kind of segregate them out because I know this person is weak when it comes to their ability to stay the course. So if you put them back in the cherry pit, they're going to relapse. But me, you can stick me in the cherry pit, and I did after I stopped drinking. I worked in bars. I went to bars, and I don't drink. So there's a big difference between somebody who is resistant and it was forced upon them, like Miss Park with, slave labor and sexual slavery, that somebody constantly twisted them. Big difference. So, again, it's a difference in those people's susceptibility, and they're weak in that area. Maybe they're very good with their food habits, their dietary habits, and they can make good choices that way. So the SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so, again, you have to understand, like people smoking or other things, that somebody, encourage them heavily to smoke. Like the one cigarette I smoked the first time, it was a kid who encouraged me to smoke it as a little kid, and I got sick. It wasn't me seeking out a cigarette. But I didn't smoke again until I had one pack on the beach when I was bored in Cancun, and it was because I was bored, and I sought it out. And I got really sick because I had a bunch of cigarettes. And I was sick for the rest of the trip. But the whole point is, I did seek it out. But I also turned away. But again, I was bored, and I was on the beach in Cancun, and there was a cigarette person, and I had nothing to do, and people were smoking around me, so I figured, what the hell? I'll have some. That was a mistake. But I haven't repeated that mistake since. But you have to understand, when you're looking in this and assessing yourself, like, are you good with money? Okay. But are you good with money in what realm? Truly, you might be a good person about picking out merchandise and that, but you're a horrible investor. So, again, assessing yourself, where you're good and where you're not, and you outsource. Sometimes that's why it's nice to have a spouse. Like I used to outsource things to Jen. She was faster on the search, so I have her do the computer searches. She would look up things and, do the comparisons and so on and so forth, and she was just really quick. So I just outsourced to her. And she liked doing it because it saved time, because me doing it, it was like, because I'm slower. She works on the computer all day doing high-speed stuff. So I had her do that. She travels all the time and eats at the different restaurants. I don't know the menus. She does. So I outsource my food selection to her. Because she eats out from consulting, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 4 days a week. So I would outsource that to her. Just like my sister. She used to order for us for food in that. So I would outsource, basically allow her the order. Like, look at this piece of shit behind me. He's flying up on my ass, and then they're going to turn here to the right. That's a fucking scumbag. He's gonna fly up, they hit the brakes to make a right-hand turn. And they weren't going faster. So they weren't going faster. They sped up to slow down. Why the hell would you do that? Unless you're just not a good person. Because if somebody's in front of you and you're going slower and then you speed up to catch them, to slow down to making a turn right after you catch up to them, how did that make any shit sense? So again, you have to understand these things. And again, I don't understand why we don't want this to be the safest city, where our cops can do a lot of things like monitor potholes. They're supposed to work together, right? Streets and sanitation. The cops are supposed to patrol all the different streets, and they do. So they go over all this area constantly through the different officers. They're supposed to go over the whole village every day. Every single day, they're supposed to cover it. Like the city of Chicago has all the precincts. They cover literally the whole city. They're supposed to every day. Every public street, every alleyway. Literally, that's how you set up a grid. And there should be daily feedback. Truly, on what they see. And then it can be passed out to the different departments. So literally, the firefighters don't see things. And they're more around to every place. The health inspector only has a few, but the cops go in the restaurants and eat. There's less health inspectors. There's mass amounts. They go into restaurants and eat. They go into bathrooms to piss. They do all this stuff during their shift. So they can provide a lot of analytics back. And so they're like, oh, I went into this bathroom. They write up, to the health department. It was dirty. I went into this restaurant and the guy was unkempt. they're supposed to do that. Make a mental note and then use copy talk. Like there's this little thing, this little handheld thing that they can use too. It converts anything you say into notes. And then you can print out a copy of it. It's really cool system. And you can take it anywhere you go and you just talk into it and it'll convert it all into notes. It'll give the time, the day, break down into topics. It reads the speech. And then, truly, it reads it. Artificial intelligence, it reads it and then bundles it into categories. This is about Peter. That was about Jim. This is about cars. That was about girls. And so it can bundle it into notes. And so they can use something and it breaks it down for them and sends it to the right department. Once it's breaking down, and then it just reads the category: health department, streets and sanitation, transportation, Department of Transportation, and it just sends out the information. So it can be done very simple, and they can correlate the body camera information, the cameras on the police car, with the notes. So they have the car camera and then the body camera. When he was in the restaurant and bathroom, he has a body camera on. And so the footage from the body camera gets attached, a clip of it, right to the notes. And because they're uploading the footage from the car to the body camera, and he notes, like, here on Hintz Road, Cross Street, Cross Street, let's see, Chapel Hill. Because with that, there should be GPS, not only for the car, for all of the foot movement of the officer. And that correlates over to the footage. So when the officer walks in, the GPS unit knows where the officer is, what restaurant, how much movement. So it correlates, so when they get out of the car, it goes with them. Because if they're in a foot pursuit, you're like, where is Officer Steven? Oh, yeah. Officer Steven's a block ahead on the left-hand side of the street, moving at 5 miles an hour. Because the GPS knows your foot speed. Is the officer walking? Is the officer running? Is the officer stationary? And if you want, you can put in the GPS a altitude where it does for a plane, it shows that it churns, and so it shows the vertical and horizontal horizon. So if the officer's still but vertical, things are good. But if the officer's still and they're horizontal, there could be a serious problem. So it tells whether the officer's vertical or horizontal. So that way you get officer down. And so all of this can go into military as well, and Border Patrol and all of that, because you know where everybody is, the rate of movement, truly, you know how fast, and it correlates with the body cameras or the camera on the plane or tank. Like, you can tap into the cameras on an F-35 ground command. So not only can the pilot see it, but they have a co-pilot. Basically, they can see what the pilot sees. They should on all of those, so they can see. Turn on, the F-35 camera in the southeast region of Iraq over, whatever city. They can see where they all are. They can see how fast they're moving, what direction they're moving, what altitude they're at, and then they can activate the cameras to take a look. So again, even in a dogfight, the cameras can show them who they're being pursued from, where the shot is coming at. And so they can look at the camera from the F-35 and it got shot at from the ground. And then they take that data with the GPS and then they back it in using telemetry. They know the bullet came from that motherfucker right there. And then they send out a strike team. The F-35 just keeps on going on its mission. But they send out a tactical team. This is where they receive shots from. Right there. And they go in and they assault the compound. Truly. So again, it helps where all the ground firing at, and they have it all. And then they can reverse engineer where it came from. And so all of that stuff, whether it's the tanks or the Humvees or any of that, they have all the surroundings, where it was, so on and so forth, and then they can go back in satellite, like reverse the satellite. What do you mean? Reverse the satellite. Because the Humvee got an IED, improvised explosive, so we know it was here, GPS location, and obviously the day it blew up and the time it blew up. So let's go backwards over the satellite footage, looking at that roadway, because sometime prior, somebody planted the IED, improvised explosive. So once you get that, you can do a lot of amazing things with it. So again, these things can happen, and it gives them all this real time, and they can work with, even the military can reach out and to Google Earth or other satellite systems, truly, and ask them, do you have any imaging of this area in Baghdad, this road, at this time with your systems? So the military can reach out to civilians, other organizations that have satellites, or they can reach out to the British. They have satellite systems. So I don't know how much extensive the Canadian military does. But again, the British do. And they can reach out to them. And then our partners who have other, and then private organizations that have satellites that do other things, like maybe they're doing topographical mapping. And so maybe Google is topographically mapping. And you go, well, did your satellites, when they were topographical mapping in this area, we need this time and date since you topographically map this area. And when you look at it, you can see if there was any types of, person there, basically. Any changes in the topographical. Because they got to dig stuff up and displace dirt and then fill dirt back in. So that changes the topographical image. So again, they can reach out to other militaries for their satellites and what they saw, and then other civilian services that might be doing other types of imaging or mapping for other purposes, and ask to get footage, information. But anyways, I'm going to leave this.